Here with our good friend Matt George of the Locked On Kings Podcast Network, and of course of ABC 10. And yes, Matt, I was saying good things about you before you joined us. I think you're. I was telling everyone I listen to your podcast very regularly. I found myself watching it, like watching it, not just having it playing, but watching it for probably one of the first times last night. And you do a really, really good job of putting that together with the highlights that you don't film highlights, you film the whole damn game for your ABC 10 duties, and it makes for a really good podcast, man. So great job with that. It's always been a great listen. It's a really, really good watch.
I appreciate that. Thank you. I stay way too late at the Golden One Center to get it done, but there's something. I mean, it's been too noisy in there because they have to replace the court after every freaking game because the NBA is back to 97 different courts for each team. But
I don't like the way he said that.
He's not happy, Matt George.
I don't like the. I didn't like it when you remember. I can't remember what year it was. It was the year I think before the bubble year, where the Kings had 3 different courts. They had the blue court, they had their home purple court, and then they had the black court with like the medieval looking line in the middle. And they changed it literally every single game. I didn't like it. Commit to a court. Like commit to your court.
What is this, 1978? Like,
Yes.
no, we can change courts.
Kings out here hoeing around with different courts.
No, we can't, because when you change the court, then I got to go up into like the suites or something, and I can't shoot down on the court after the game because you're too busy with your hammers and making a bunch of noise.
Oh, so this is about you.
It's about me, absolutely. And it's about, like, purple is the best color in the world. Purple is your color, and you keep going away from purple. It makes me upset.
I mean, they're paying homage to 100 years of
this purple shortage. We've been over this.
Who cares?
Wow.
So we don't care about our 100-year history here.
No, because there were 97 different cities that you were involved in before you came to Sacramento. Sacramento's history is purple. The king, the royal color.
Literally not just purple. They were blue for like the first 12 years.
And everybody and their mother is blue and red and white. Have some originality. Stick with what makes you you. Everybody and their mother wants to be the country's colors. No. Commit to your own thing.
Leave everyone's mother out of this. Why are you so cranky today?
Because I don't like it. I don't like them going away from my purple. My purple, I want the old Kings logo back too. I don't like this little like letter stamp that they got. Go back to the old Kings logo.
Which also is almost paying homage to the old Kings logo. They went back to their logo.
It's still the Sacramento era logo with the Sacramento coloring. When they came to Sacramento, they rebranded. They said, forget Kansas City, forget Rochester, forget all that nonsense. That's not us. We're here in Sacktown now. We got our own colors. We got our own logo. We got our own building.
They literally didn't do that for 10 years.
Which was their problem, but they finally caught up.
They have the logo they have now is the same logo they had when they got here, and they had for 10 years, just a different color.
Boring, lazy. Go back to the old one that looked like barbershop poles and nobody knew what the hell was going on, but there was a basketball in the middle of it. I like that one. You know what I miss too are the 2 logos that were on each side of the court, the little SK with the crown on top. Those little logos they put like on that just inside the 3-point line. Those were dope. Those were dope logos too.
Logos. Yeah.
Do you want to complain about anything else?
No, I'm good. How are you?
Well, I'm good, Matt. We're happy that you're here. Let's talk about last night's win against Portland. I think one of the prevailing conversations is it felt like coming out of that trip to Houston, the Kings were broken, and the discussion today was, well, are they fixed after that win against Portland? There's obviously a lot of good, a lot of bad that came out of that game. As Malik pointed out, the most important thing to get a victory. But what do you think? Like, what did that win last night do for you?
Well, they're sure as hell not fixed. I can tell you that. But a win by any means necessary is exactly what this team won. And I walked into the Golden One Center last night going, I don't care how the Kings win. I don't care if it's ugly. I don't care if it's a blowout. I don't care if it's 1 point. Just find a way to win this game. And there was a large portion of that game where I felt like, wow, the Kings are playing much better. And then I look up at the scoreboard and see, oh, the Kings are only up by 4, or, oh, wait, the Kings are trailing by 2. Like, I have the feeling that if Fox were playing last night, if everything else went the same, but Fox were there, I think the Kings would have probably had a pretty comfortable lead for the majority of that game last night, but he wasn't. And the Kings still struggled to create separation. They once again got up to a double-digit lead. I think this time it was only 10 compared to like 14 or 15 that it's been the other couple of home games. Once again, they blew a double-digit lead on their home floor, which is something that I want to see this Kings team get better at. But ultimately, they won the game. So you feel good about that part. You feel good about the effort being there. You feel good about some guys kind of turning things around and stepping up. I love the game that Domantas Sabonis had. I loved moments from Davion Mitchell. You could tell he was really playing with like a fire lit under him. But this Kings team still has issues on the offensive end of the ball. And when it comes to their shooting, like I realize that I'm kind of in the minority of looking at the Kings shooting struggles, because like Will Z put out that amazing stat that talked about, at least going into last night's game, that the Kings were generating the most wide open threes out of anybody in the league. And they were towards the bottom of the league in 3-point shooting percentage. And most people, I think Kenny, you said so too, like most people were looking at that and going, I'm actually encouraged by this, right? Because, okay, the Kings are missing shots. Those are going to start falling at some point, right? That's the same thing we said over the course of the 7-game playoff series. At some point, they're going to drop. They never did. Now we're 7 games into the regular season. At some point, they're going to drop. So to me, this is going from a shooting funk to now a trend. And it started, in my opinion, with the Kings trying to focus up and ramp up and pick up their effort and physicality on the defensive end of the floor. 9 of those 14 games have been against the Warriors, so that's probably an important aspect of it too. But I think I still need to see that this team can play at that level offensively that they're known for, while emphasizing defense as much as they are.
So here's what I'll say to that, Matt. And you know, I'm about, and I hear what you're saying, but I'm about keeping the same energy and doing the same things. Real quick, let me ask both of you guys, what did Keegan Murray shoot from 3 last year? 41%, I believe.
Was it that high?
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
he's 41%. What did Kevin Huerter? I got you right
It was
here.
like 37, 38.
For his career, from beyond the arc, he's a 38% 3-point shooter.
Kevin
Huerter. If they were shooting 60, 70% from beyond the arc right now, well, they're not going to do that all year. Their average says they're 40% shooters and 38% shooters. That would be the conversation. It would not be, this is who they are, this is what they're going to do. So now that they're drastically below that, they're not going to shoot that all year. Their career, the back of their basketball card says this is probably what they're going to do throughout the course of a year. And that's why I say it is a good thing that you're getting those wide open looks, because averages, for better or for worse, always come back to around where the averages are.
I understand that completely, and I think you make perfect sense, except those averages are when the Kings were giving up 118 points per game. Now they're trying to get down to, I think they're around like 114, 115. It might even be a little bit lower than that. So they've made a like 3, 4, 5 point improvement on points per game that they're giving up. The problem is they've dropped off around 6 points per game scoring wise. So it's kind of the conversation that Kenny, you and I were having a little bit coming into the season is how much do you risk what you do well on the offensive side of the ball for the emphasis on the defensive end? And I think at this point, we've seen a large enough sample size to know that clearly the Kings, whether it's physical, mental, whatever it is, clearly the Kings focusing on the defensive end of the ball is having an impact on their offense, right? Like it's whether they're walking the ball up the floor for no reason. They, for some reason, completely went away from pace and then picked it back up last night. They had 0 paint touches in those 2 games in Houston. That's not true. They had very few paint touches in those games in Houston, got back to actually attacking the basket. Granted, I don't think the Portland Trailblazers really had anything defensively to stop the Kings from getting to the basket last night, which was good to see. But like, since there's been this emphasis on the defensive end, which I understand why, like the Kings need to improve defensively. But ever since that point, the offense just has not looked like itself. So I mean, I hear you completely that, like, I firmly believe that Keegan Murray is going to work his way through the shooting slump. I'm glad we're seeing Kevin Huerter working his way through the shooting slump. but the Sacramento Kings are putting up the most threes out of anybody in the league, and they're towards the bottom of the league in 3-point shooting, period. So either you have to change the amount and the volume of threes that you're putting up, because as a team, everybody is missing right now, which I think correlates with their emphasis on the defensive end, or you have to find a way to not emphasize the defensive end so much, or get this team to start shooting better. And I mean, I'm just looking at the trend of 14 games at this point. Granted, there's a 3-month or however long break in between that, but since the defensive emphasis has started, this is what I've seen.
And real quick, I'll say, so what do you say about this, Matt? It's not de-emphasizing defense. It's reaffirming offense. That's what I think happened a lot. Like it was, and once again, I always say this isn't fair because this isn't exactly what was said. But the feeling was, it was like, whatever about offense. I don't want to hear about offense. We need to be better on defense. Then like that was the thing. And I'm like, nah, it's not whatever on offense. Like empower that. You use that to empower. Be like, hey, we're this great offensive team. We have to get better on the defensive end. But we literally, this is what we do. We score 118 to 120. Catch up if you can, and I think they got away from that because there was so much talk about the defense. And you got to get back to, once again, not necessarily taking away from defense, but empowering that offensive mentality as well. Like, hey, yeah, I know we got to play defense, but let's get back to what we do. We get buckets, like we score, we get up and down the floor. I think it's more that as opposed to take away from defense, possibly. What you think about that?
Well, I hear that, but also how much more can you empower a team who's getting a lot of wide open looks and they're just missing them? Like you can empower them to move the ball the same. Like the Kings are moving the basketball well. They're generating open threes. Even with De'Aaron Fox out, they've been generating open threes. Almost everybody is missing, which again, it could be like a team's just in a funk right now. They're going to work their way through it, which I truly hope is the case. But I need this team to prove it to me because they don't deserve the benefit of the doubt of they can play good defense and score at the rate that they're capable of scoring. They haven't proven that yet. So if I'm going to choose one over the other, I'm choosing the offense that won them 40, however many games it was, or 50, whatever it was. I already forgot the win total, 48. They won 48 games and secured you a third seed last year. I'm going to choose that offense over a slightly improved defense with the personnel that the Sacramento Kings have. Because if the offense drops off 6-7 points per game like it has, and the defense is league average, this Kings team might be a play-in team. So to me, I see you say reaffirmation. I want to see a reaffirmation or a re-emphasis of the offense is what we do. The defense needs to improve to support that. Not, hey, let's improve this defense so much and we can sacrifice a little bit on the offensive end, when a little bit, at least through 7 games, to me is more than I'm willing to see drop off.
How do you find the balance?
That's a wonderful question.
The balance between scoring points, being at those numbers Matt was talking about from last year, and still getting better, right? And improving. The idea is to improve on what you did last year. How do you do it then? And I'm asking that rhetorically. I don't expect you to answer. There's probably going to be some give somewhere. I just think the argument that maybe you're both making, I'm not sure, is the give is too much. The give is too much, and the get back isn't enough. Being league average, like Matt just said, on the defensive end, that ain't going to do it. And being league average on the defensive end, when you're losing 6 points off of what you did last year, that really ain't going to do it. Mm-hmm. Now, if you're losing 2 points off of what you did last year in your league average, that could be an entirely different story. But that's what Mike has to figure out, and that's why I'm so curious what we see tomorrow in terms of rotations and lineups, because Matt, obviously that was a big story yesterday with Keon Ellis, Kessler Edwards, Alex Lynn, and so on. We see Kessler. Kessler's always been a guy who we associated with defense. Mm-hmm. Keon Ellis, defense. Chris Duarte, defense. Well, you're going against a team that's putting up some points right now. You may not know how to strike a balance for 82 games, but you better find a way to strike a balance tomorrow if you want to beat Oklahoma City.
And I see like the
ever playing tournament.
I see the reactions in the chatty house, and they're the same reactions that I'm getting on the podcast. Like, I feel like this is an overreaction. It's too small of a sample size. And I understand that, but I also think like we're clutching this security blanket of at some point it's going to improve. And we're basing that off of 1 year. It was a really good year, and I fully think the Kings can repeat what they do last year. They can repeat that, but there's no guarantee that that's going to happen. So my concern is like they haven't earned the expectation of things are going to work themselves out the same way like the Denver Nuggets may have, or like if the Milwaukee Bucks go through a shooting drought or shooting struggles, they've been consistent of a top shooting team over the past handful of seasons to where it's like, okay, I believe that the Bucks can survive a slow stretch to start the season or a bad shooting spell because they've done it before and they've overcome it and they've been victorious. Sacramento has not proven and done that yet. So for so many people to just go, it's only 7 games, the Kings will figure it out. I hope you're right. But I mean, I'm looking at it through the lens of Mike Brown and the coaching staff aren't sitting there going, we'll be fine. We'll just shoot our way through it. They're trying to figure this out. And clearly the Sacramento players, based off of Domantas Sabonis's comments or at shoot around before last night's game, clearly they're not just waiting around to start to have a conversation. Like the identity of this Sacramento Kings team has been in question so far this season. Granted, the absence of De'Aaron Fox magnifies that tenfold, but Fox returning does not mean that suddenly everybody's going to start hitting shots, because the Kings have been missing shots with Fox in the game too. Fox has just been good enough to carry them through that at times. So, I mean, I think these are legitimate concerns that we can't just ignore because it's a small sample size or it's too early in the season.
I still think, and I don't want to say ignore. I don't know if I'm ignoring it, but I think we're talking about 2 guys. We're talking about Keegan and Kevin Huerter. And the reason why I will say it's too early is the Sacramento Kings as a unit, as a group, they haven't shown anything but the 1 year. But Kevin Huerter has never shot less than 36% from beyond the arc. He's at 28 right now. Well, I'm going to say he's not going to shoot 28%. He's not going to shoot 30%. He's probably going to be anywhere between 35 to 38%. Keegan Murray's a little different because we've only seen him 1 year, but I'm going to say he's not going to – he was in the mid-20s. It might be lower now. He's not going to do that this year. Like that is – I have no problem saying that's going to change. I have no problem saying it's too early to worry about that, because that's going to change. Now, when you talk about who else is shooting threes, I mean, you could talk about Sasha. Maybe you could use his Euro stat, be like, he's never shot this bad before. I don't know. It's Euro, it's not the NBA. Maybe you don't want to correlate that. But other than that, we're talking Duarte, Kobe Jones, guys like that who probably aren't even going to be playing that much once De'Aaron comes back. And when De'Aaron was here, the offense was putting up 128 points per game.
No, I hear that, and I think you're absolutely right that Kevin Huerter and Keegan Murray are the emphasis, but you just rattled off some names there, and like looking at the three-point shooting percentage, the shooting is Sasha Vezenkov's primary skill. He's shooting 27%. Granted, he hasn't been putting up nearly as many shots as he probably thought he would coming into the league. Chris Duarte self-describes himself as a shooter. He's known as a 3-and-D type player. He comes in, he's shooting 33%. Malik Monk, one of his primary skills is three-point shooting, although with the Sacramento Kings, that's adapted more to, he's become more of a floor general and playmaker than he has a shooter, which he's been throughout his entire career to this point. Malik Monk is shooting 33%. He was 0 of 7, I think, from three-point range last night. Like, this is not just a Huerter and Murray issue. The two of them shoot the most threes out of anybody, and they're missing. So naturally, we gravitate and our attention goes to them. But there isn't anybody. I mean, Harrison Barnes is shooting in the 40s, but Harrison Barnes sometimes doesn't shoot the basketball, period. And
Right.
there were still a handful of minutes last night where I was watching Barnes stand in the corner and stand on the wing and not move. And I'm wondering, okay, is this the Kings offense that Barnes is just supposed to get out of the way for spacing? Or is Barnes just standing there because he doesn't know what else to do with himself? Like, to me, there are too many good players. We talked about coming into this league, Kenny, you and I were hyping up and raving like, look at the depth on this team. How do you stop this team? There's so many weapons that can kill you from the perimeter. And for the most part, every single one, including guys that weren't around for the playoffs, are struggling to start this season. Again, maybe just a team-wide funk. I certainly hope it is. But I'm concerned that so many different players are struggling with some of their primary skills on the offensive side of the ball when this is an offensive roster that the Kings have constructed, because I don't know if it's because or maybe they're impacted by the focus on the defensive end or what the Kings are asking of them on the defensive end of the floor. I'm just seeing players that are normally solid from 3-point range not shoot well consistently now to start the season and even in preseason.
If they play at the right pace, they'll be fine.
I agree. I think so
The
too.
thing that bothers me the most is when they start trying to slow things down.
Exactly.
That's not the game. Yesterday, I thought they sped it up a little bit. They at least were trying to, and you just saw better. It wasn't like a great offensive performance. We saw a better offensive performance. As long as they do that, I think they'll be okay.
I think one thing that talking with and to Sacramento Kings fans for the last few days is one thing I think like First Take and Skip and Stephen A and all those guys have done is they like every reaction becomes an overreaction. You've got to trade this person. LeBron James has got to retire. Kawhi Leonard just beat LeBron James last night. He's the greatest basketball player of all time. When you bring up points that you're bringing up about this offense, that Matt's bringing up about the way these guys are shooting, it's not an overreaction to anything.
Mm-hmm.
It's not let's wait and see where they're at in 20 games. No, it's a reaction. Mm-hmm. Our job is to react to what we see, good or bad, on a night-to-night basis, covering this team. And that's what we do. We react to what we see, and reacting with doesn't have to be you don't have to lay a disclaimer out that the sample size is short. We're seeing Keegan Murray shoot bad. Mm-hmm. Keegan Murray knows he's shooting bad. We've seen it for a stretch of games now. There's nothing overreactionary about that. It's legitimate to have concern about, hey, when's he going to get back on track? We had the same concern about Kevin Huerter. Now we're starting to see him get back on track a little bit. That was one of the really positive things that came out of last night's game, is you're starting to see these shots fall for Kevin Huerter. And Matt, I'll ask you this: reactions, overreactions. Did Mike overreact taking Davion Mitchell out of the starting lineup, or did he simply react to what he have seen over the last couple of days and thought, or the last couple of games, and thought Keon Ellis might be a better fit there?
See, I think it's a totally normal and necessary reaction for Mike to move Davion out of the starting lineup. There was nothing Davion Mitchell was doing that suggests that he looked capable of being the starting point guard for this team. I'm questioning whether or not he can be he can be a primary point guard in this league. Like he hasn't really shown an ability to do that at any point, and we're in year 3 now. So it's very different running the starting unit versus running the second unit. So I give Davion grace in that sense, but expectations for this Sacramento Kings team are much higher than, hey, we'll just make it to the playoffs again. Like, and that's where I see people say, like, look at the Kings record to start last season versus look at the Kings record to start this season. They're the same. The Sacramento Kings are fine. Think about the difference of expectations, though. Last year it was, hey, maybe the Kings can make it into the play-in. We'd love to see it at best 6th seed. Now the expectations this year placed upon the Kings by their head coach and by their star are, we think we can contend for a championship. What about the way the Sacramento Kings are playing to start the season suggests they're anywhere remotely close to contending for a championship? One player goes down, and offensively, this team completely fell apart. So that's the bar that I'm holding them at. And I'm not used to playing the pessimistic side over the optimistic side, if anybody knows my history, but this is just what I'm seeing. So going back to your question, D'Lo, like, I think moving Davion Mitchell out of the starting lineup was essential, not just for the Kings to get off to a better start, but essential to send a message to Davion Mitchell like, dude, this is not good enough. And we have high expectations for you as our backup point guard. To me, the Kings only have one true point guard on this roster. That's De'Aaron Fox. He's hurt right now. I was really puzzled by the choice to start Keon. Now I'm just rooting for the guy. And I don't think Keon Ellis did really anything wrong last night. I think he turned over the ball 4 times, whatever. He went from a two-way guy who never played to not just starting with the first unit guy, starting as the most important position on the floor. As the point guard, you are leading that second unit. Doesn't matter how much you run through Domantas Sabonis. Doesn't matter how many assets you have out there that can also control the basketball. You are the leader of the unit as a point guard. And Keon's not a true point guard. He's a 2. So I was not a fan of the decision initially. I was willing to see it play out, and the Kings got off to a good start, and the Kings are 1-0 in games that Keon Ellis starts, so it's sour grapes at this point. My choice would have been Malik Monk, because Malik is the only other player not named De'Aaron Fox on this roster who plays the way the Sacramento Kings want to play from their primary ball handler. He's the only other guy. And I get, because I've defended to the end of the earth, don't move Malik out of the second unit because he's essential with that second unit. But that's when the Kings are at full strength, or at the very least, De'Aaron Fox is healthy and playing. When Fox is out, I don't care about the impact of your second unit. You're replacing your star. So get your best player that you can grab from that second unit to help replace your star. To me, Malik should be starting, but the Kings won the game last night. I don't know if Fox is going to play or not on Friday. If the Kings roll out Keon Ellis or Davion Mitchell or anybody against OKC tomorrow and they play the way that they did last night, I think it's going to be an ugly night. So we can be happy that the beam was lit, be happy that the Kings got a win by any means necessary, which I think is exactly what this team needed to get back on track. But there's still a lot of things that they have to clean up, and every single team is good at this point, or every single team can throw something at you that you should be at least a little bit worried about.
For sure. Matt's pissed off today.
Yeah, he is. He is not here for your nonsense.
It's been a week, and D'Lo knows why. It's been a week.
It has. Can you? I'm bad at this. Did you ask Domas the question about what yesterday at shoot around about what the discussion was with the coaches and players? Was that you?
No, that wasn't me. I wasn't there. I think it was Brendan that asked.
Oh, Brendan got you. Oh yeah, we don't acknowledge him.
Another guy.
Nice
guy.
He does. He has to know. I think we gave Brendan love earlier. Brendan knows we love him. We hoo everybody that's over there.
That's right.
Except Chris Verlot. He's just a pain in the
ass. Don't tweet him.
I can tweet him. I can tweet him. He can't tweet me. He'll get called into the principal's office if he talks to me. Take some pictures on Friday night. That's for sure.
Let me ask you this, Matt, and this is something that we've been trying to decipher. Do you think all of this angst that we've had over the last 48 hours or so?
Thank you for saying
really come. Oh no, because I've had it too. I was upset too. But you think it all comes down to the way Monday played out? Because when you look at the game, when you look at the team with Fox, I don't know the exact number, but they put up 130 in one game, 122 another game, 137 another game. The offense wasn't an issue. Fox goes down. They play against the Warriors. Offense is an issue, but you don't have Fox. You still play hard. You lose by one on a shot from a Hall of Famer. Saturday, they didn't play well, but they just didn't play well. You know what I mean? And it's just what you're going to have those games. Monday.
There's a bar right there. They didn't play well, but they didn't play well.
Air horns.
Monday was, James Ham said it was traumatic for us as Kings fans. That was, oh hell no. We're not doing this. But like I said, when you break down these games, it's not like there's 3 Mondays in there. It's one game that had us going back to a time that we don't ever want to go back to. Other than that, all of it was relatively fine. So all the angst that everybody had, does it really come down to one game?
Yes, a lot of it does. I don't think there was anything that was relatively fine about anything that they did in the first game in Houston either. They came out flat and got their ass kicked by Dillon Brooks and the Rockets. Now, I feel a little bit better about the Rockets because they just kicked the Lakers' ass last night. So I think I underestimated the Rockets. I have no problem saying that. Rockets fans are having no problem telling me in my comment section that I underestimated the Rockets, and that's fine. I went into those 2 games against the Rockets with the expectation that splitting this should be the absolute minimum. 2-0 should be the hope or expectation for the team, regardless of if De'Aaron Fox is playing or not, again, based off of the level that they want to get to and how good they think they are. And in both games, they got punked. The second game was definitely worse than the first game, Kenny, not just because the Kings dropped down by 40 at one point in that game, but because the Kings tried to start the game in game 2 versus not trying to start the game in game 1, and they still trailed by 10 points or more and only scored, I think, 22 in the first quarter. At that point, it was like, oh, this team looks more engaged and they still suck. The Kings could not get within the 3-point line, period. That was concerning. I think the Rockets are a really good defensive team. I think Ime Udoka has that team playing very, very well, playing aggressively. So I think it's also exemplified the fact that those two bad games were against the same team, right? Maybe giving us a little bit of playoffs PTSD of playing the same team twice in a row and getting beat down twice in a row, right? So I think there's an element of that too. Also, this is a position that the Sacramento Kings really haven't been in before. It's certainly the first time in my career that I've covered a team with as high of expectations as the Kings have. So there's definitely some angst with what happened over the weekend for sure. But the angst is less from look what the Rockets did to you and more from look what you were doing to yourself. And there were moments where the starting lineup was still, even with De'Aaron Fox out, was still 5 guys that played together all last year and should be very familiar with each other. 4 starters that played in a starting lineup that played more than any other starting lineup in the league, or at least one of the top in the league last season. And those guys were looking at each other like, we don't know what the hell to do. That's what scared me, is the primary strength of this Kings team. They looked lost. They looked deer in the headlights. And if a team like the Houston Rockets can do that to you, like, what do we think the Rockets' ceiling is? Maybe a team like the Kings were last year that surprised everybody and get to a 3 seed. Is that the absolute best? Fine. I don't think anybody expects the Rockets to win a championship. If the Houston Rockets can do that to you, what are the Nuggets going to do to you if you clash with them in the playoffs?
So
real quick, I think we gotten to the point where we're a little too flippant of this. They didn't have De'Aaron. You still need to look. I mean, come on, man. Like to take the top player off of any team in the league, and they could lose or get their ass beat by anybody.
But does their all NBA center take 4 shots?
Well, did he take 4 shots in the game against the Warriors? That's what I mean. We're talking about one game. We're talking about one game. And against the Warriors, he went for 23 and 16 in a 1-point loss.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't play well on Saturday, 11 points or something like that. I get that, but he came back last night and put up a big time numbers.
But I think Matt said that, like, he was like, yeah, that game shook him up. I think and you pointed out it shook a lot of people up. And I could absolutely be, reaching here with this thought. If you listen to Domas last night, I think that game kind of shook them up a little bit. Cause you talk about like what, if the Rockets can do that to them, what could the Nuggets do to them? I don't think that game was about what the Rockets did. I think it was about the Sacramento Kings.
I agree.
And Domas saying last night, he admitted at the post game, he said a loss tonight would have been tough. That would have been. I don't know how you always hear play. Oh, it's a long season. Oh, one game. Oh, we take things in stride. Oh, blah blah blah. Domas acknowledged at the end of that game last night at the podium, a loss would have been really, really tough on us. So I think that speaks less to the Portland game and more of their internal reaction and feelings about that Houston game. To your point, Matt, talking about Houston, Denver, I don't even think that was about Houston. That was all about Sacramento. That was all about those guys, and that's what they got addressed, I'm assuming, in that conversation that Domas was talking about for the game last night.
And real quick to Matt, because I want to make sure he answers. I'm included in that. I was shook up by Monday. I didn't. Tuesday was not a good day after watching that on Monday. I'm included. But all I'm saying is I step back now and you look at it in its totality, and I see the other games they played without Fox, and nothing was like Monday. Nothing was like Monday.
No, I agree with you. I understand it. And again, I think where the overreaction comes in is maybe hyper focusing too much on the bad and not recognizing the good amongst the bad. There really was no good amongst the bad in Houston, but there was good amongst the bad last night. There was good amongst the bad against the Golden State Warriors. There was good amongst the bad in the first Warriors game that the Kings lost. So like, it's not like this team has been dreadful to start the season. They're 3-4 without playing well, which some people would say is encouraging too. This team is right below 500 and they haven't looked like themselves really at any point over the course of the season. And I would even say even the first game where they beat down Utah, they did that because Harrison Barnes decided to look like a superstar for a night. It's not because the Kings offense was unbelievable that night. So there's definitely optimistic ways to look at things. And to be honest with you, I miss looking at them through that lens. To me, people bring up the same point that you bring up. Like, you lose your star, you're going to struggle. I understand that completely. But the Kings, like, they lose a 31 point per game scorer. At least have your team make up 20 of those 31 points together. They haven't been. Like, they've been making up 5, 10, sometimes none. Like, they went from 120 points to barely being able to sniff 100 2 games in a row. So it's not that, oh, you lost your star. Yeah, you're going to struggle. It's you lost your star, and nobody could even come remotely close to replacing any of what De'Aaron does, which suggests to me you're not as good of a team as you thought you are. And when De'Aaron Fox comes back, you're going to get burnt out unless you figure that out, which I think the Kings will. But at this point in time, it's concerning because, again, the primary strengths of this team, I'm not seeing them unless Fox is playing and putting the team on his back.
That's Matt George, a very
I want to be
fiery.
happy. I'm sorry. I want to be happy. Kings are going to beat the Oklahoma City Thunder down tomorrow night on that ugly ass court, but it's not going to matter.
Oh, okay.
Because they go away from the purple, but they're going to bring the purple beam into that gray and blue arena for no reason.
Matt, why don't you
I can't even be happy when I'm mad, man. Damn.
Can't even be happy.
Hey, is that a bar?
That was a bar.
Hey, just real quick, Matt George, Locked On Kings, ABC 10. Say the word groin.
Groin.
That was it. You did it. That was it. It took 2 hours.
The whole time.
No, that's not what you were saying. I cannot wait for this clip to hit social media. Absolutely cannot wait for this clip to hit social media. We appreciate you so much for being with us. Make sure you're following the Locked On Kings podcast, and make sure that you are back here with Kenny tomorrow, because if you were listening today, you know this is it for me. I'm going to go do one final show on KSFM and say my